Hello everybody, here we are with a new presentation of a summary. This time we'll be talking about William Shakespeare. We'll deal with some general concepts about Shakespeare's theatre work, and we'll say a few words on Romeo and Juliet that we read some time ago. I will prepare some more presentations on Hamlet, on Julius Caesar, and on Macbeth. So we will be talking about that as well. Okay, let's start with some general notions on Shakespeare. So first of all, as we have said in class, we don't have any text, any original text by William Shakespeare. What we have, what we read, what we study are just transcriptions made by actors from other companies, admirers, and scholars. So we don't have any original text, but we can say with a certain degree of certainty that these are the texts that Shakespeare used for his play in the Globe Theatre. Why don't we have original text? Because in a time and place where copyright didn't exist, the text of a play was a theatre company most valuable asset. If the text was to be made public, everyone could use that, so that theatre company would lose some sort of exclusivity on the text. So that's why we don't have the original text. And once again, Shakespeare was not only a playwright, he was a playwright, an actor, a director. He owned the Globe Theatre, so he wanted to preserve and value his work because his livelihood and the livelihood of all the other members of the King's Men, his theatre company, depended on the success of his works. This means that the tragedies, comedies, and historical plays he wrote needed to be successful, needed to be, first of all, understandable and enjoyable by the largest number of people at the same time, even though they were complex, rich, and philosophical and intellectual texts. Okay? But first of all, the things that we read, the parts of Shakespeare's plays that you have on your books, are not the way they should be enjoyed and they were thought to be enjoyed. What we read are scripts, so technical texts. They are not complete literary works. Sonnets and poems by Shakespeare are complete literary works in themselves. We read the text, we study what they say, but we should be watching them in a theater or on a screen, played, enacted by actors. That's the way Shakespeare thought of his works, and that's the way we should be enjoying them. Okay, let's move on some themes in Shakespeare's works. Again, and this is true for all the texts we will be studying, he dealt with many aspects of the human soul. In the case of Romeo and Juliet, that we will be talking about briefly, he deals with love, for example. He was obviously a very skilled writer. He was not only a playwright. We have read the sonnets and we have seen how skillful he was, how original, how interesting he was when he described, for example, the Dark Lady. One thing we did not mention in class. As you probably know, theatre was generally in Shakespeare's times based on the three Aristotelian units. The unit of place, time, and action, meaning that each play should be set in a single place in a very brief period of time, meaning more or less 24 hours, according to Aristotle, and they should be based on one single plot line. Shakespeare does not follow these unities, because think about, for example, Romeo and Juliet. It is not set just in Verona, for example. For a brief period of time, Romeo goes to another town, to Mantua, if I'm not mistaken. The action is 6 days long, more or less. So it does not, everything does not happen in just a short period of time, and there are many different plot lines that cross and go and mix up until the end. There's the main plot line, the one of the love story of Romeo and Juliet, but there are other plot lines as well, and this is true for many of the other plays. Hamlet is an exception to that, because the unity of action is respected in that case, because we have just one main line. For example, okay. So let's deal with Romeo and Juliet. So first of all, it is a tragedy, because it ends with the death of the main characters. The main difference between a comedy and a tragedy is the ending. If it is a tragedy, the main characters die. If it is a comedy, the main characters marry. That's basically what happens. There are in the late career of William Shakespeare some called tragic comedies. For example, The Tempest, in which the tone and the atmosphere is all tragic, but they end well. As many of Shakespeare's works, it is based on a pre-existing material. In this case, a novel by Matteo Bandello published in 1554, and also this novella by Matteo Bandello is based on an existing material that dates back at least a couple of centuries before. So we don't have an original material, but obviously the reason for interest in this case is how Shakespeare uses this non-original subject matter, and that's exactly what Shakespeare does in many of his works. So now I will let an expert, actor and scholar, Ben Crystal, describe in this short video how the language of Shakespeare works in an extract taken from Romeo and Juliet, and that's the same one that you find in your book. We'll be talking about that a bit more after the end of this short film.
I'm now going to ask two actors that I work with a lot in my Passion and Practice ensemble to come up. Aslam and Jenny, can you join us? Give them a little round of applause. Not a big one yet. So they're just going to read a little bit of Romeo and Juliet for us, one of the early Shakespeare plays.
Yes. If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine, the gentle sin is this: my lips, two blushing pilgrims, did ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss.
Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hands too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this, for saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss.
Have not saints lips, and holy palmers too?
Aye, pilgrim, lips that they must use in prayer.
Oh then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray, grant thou, lest faith turn to despair.
Saints do not move, though grant for prayer's sake.
Then move not while my prayer's effect I take. Thus from my lips, by thine, my sin is purged.
Then have my lips the sin that they have took.
Sin from my lips? Oh, trespass sweetly urged, give me my sin again.
You kiss by the book.
Very well. So this is Romeo and Juliet's first meeting. And in fact, when Romeo and Juliet first meet, they meet at a dance, do they not? And Juliet has just finished dancing with Paris. And as she curtsies and he bows, her hands go back. And Romeo grabs her by the hand. And he's not supposed to, of course, because this is Elizabethan times and you're not supposed to touch. And he apologizes immediately and says, if I profane with this my unworthiest hand, this holy shrine, the gentle sin is this. Now he's turning Juliet into a statue, I suppose, into a sort of like a saintly statue. And he says, my lips, two blushing pilgrims, did ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss. So he's turning her into a statue of a saint and him into a pilgrim. She picks up the play and says, good pilgrim, you're doing your hand too much disservice, which you're showing me in the way that you're talking so nicely to me, you're mad. And anyway, saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, because, I suppose pilgrims come to statues of saints and they kiss their hands, right? And anyway, she says, palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss. Now, there's a couple of meanings here. One is that, I suppose pilgrims pray to saints, but also, in the way that Elizabethans danced back in the day, they are at a dance after all, you guys can do it, they would dance palm to palm, not touching. And they would walk around, keeping nice eye contact, and it's all very sexy, yeah. Good, thank you, go on. And so she says, we're at a dance, we can dance, palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss. He tries again, though, he still wants that kiss. Have not saints' lips as well as palms and holy palms too? She says, yeah, pilgrim, lips that they've got to use in prayer. Stop trying to snog me, this is public. Oh, then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray, they come together. Grant thou, lest faith turn to despair. Please, I'm getting desperate. Typical boy. Then Juliet says, well, saints don't move. If I'm a saint, if I'm a statue of a saint, saints don't move. Though grant for prayer's sake, the coquette. Then he takes his chance, then move not, while my prayers effect I take. He takes his opportunity and kisses her. And then tells her, playing this sin line, thus from my lips, by thine my sin is purged. But then Juliet goes, oh, but now I've got your sin all over my lips. Then have my lips the sin that they have took. He says, oh, sin from my lips, oh, trespass, sweetly urged, give me my sin again. And she says, you kiss by the book. So they kiss again. And then whether you kiss by the book can mean you kiss very nicely, thanks for not slipping me the tongue. It can mean whatever you want it to mean, I suppose. You kiss very politely. I'm not. So that's what they're saying. But how are they saying it? Well, first of all, we know they're saying it in poetry. There's capitalized words at the beginning. If I profane with mine unworthiest hand, 10 syllables. It's written in iambic pentameter. Think about that for a minute. This is their first meeting. You walk into a bar. You see a beautiful girl. You walk up to her and you go, all right, darling, fancy a snog? Chances are you're going to get a drink thrown in your face. You walk up to a girl in a bar. Such is her beauty. Such is the amazing quality that she strikes in you and that you seem to find yourself flooding out of yourself. Though when you speak to her, you start speaking to her in poetry. You're probably not going to get a drink thrown over you. She'll probably listen. Juliet replies in poetry. So, to a bystander listening, two people, one starts talking in poetry, the other starts talking back to him in poetry. They're getting on. We can tell, just from the writing style, the dynamic between these two characters, because if they weren't getting on, Juliet could speak, give Juliet's prose to speak. And they carry on speaking in poetry, but they're not just speaking in poetry, are they? They're speaking in rhyming poetry. Hand stand, this kiss. Much touch, this kiss. To do, prayer to spare, sake take. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Such is the beauty, such is the wonder of this meeting that Shakespeare doesn't give them prose to speak to each other. He doesn't give them poetry to speak to each other. He doesn't even give them rhyming poetry to speak to each other. They share a sonnet. The only level up from that in terms of the hierarchy of speech in the way that Shakespeare had to communicate with his characters is song. God, you know. Imagine for a moment, you walk into a bar. Such is the beauty of the person opposite you that you find yourself speaking in poetry, in rhyming poetry. They seem to be into you, and they start speaking in rhyming poetry back. Not content with that, purged, urged, took book. They start another sonnet. And look at how beautiful it becomes. Thus from my lips, by thine my sin is purged, then have my lips the sin that they have took, sin from my lips, or trespass sweetly urged. Give me my sin again, you kiss by the book. Give me my sin again, you kiss by the book. It's that elision. Removing a syllable, it makes it make 10. They're not just sharing a sonnet anymore. They're sharing lines of poetry. They're finishing each other's sentences. And they met 50 seconds ago. So, in order to read it right and well, as you read those last couple of lines again, as Shakespeare intended.
Thus from my lips, by thine my sin is purged.
Then have my lips the sin that they have took.
Sin from my lips. O trespass sweetly urged, give me my sin again.
You kissed by the book.
Good, and actually it's probably going to have to be a bit faster, so go from go trespass.
O trespass sweetly urged, give me my sin again.
You kissed by the book.
Good, and the last time I gave this a workshop on this scene, a 14-year-old went, but how can they kiss? They've only got, like, give me my sin again, you kissed by the book. But if you guys, like, have just kissed, so come close. And notice how we've got thus from my lips, then have my lips, sin from my lips. And it's almost like they're kind of just whispering against each other's cheeks, right? But what's interesting, and this, as I say, is an earlier play, that not only is he experimenting with the sonnet form that he wrote a lot of while the theatres were closed in 92 to 94, he's experimenting here with breaking up the poetic form and directing his actors even further, because in order to keep a reverence to the form, those 10 beats shared, the actors have to come in on cue.
So, as we have seen in this short film, let's have a look at the text that you have on your book and that we have, and that Ben Crystal just discussed. First of all, let me point out one element that's not in the video. When you read this part in your book, you will probably see some words written in italics and between square brackets. They are stage directions, and they are not part of the original text. They don't. Shakespeare's plays in the original manuscripts, in the original transcriptions that we have, do not have stage directions. They added by modern critics, philologists, directors, and so on, to make this technical text clearer and easier to enact, to make into an actual play. But if you look at that, there is probably no need for stage directions. One that I remember from your book is that after the last line in the first column, then move not while my prayers effect I take, he says, he kisses her, or Romeo kisses Juliet. There's absolutely no need for that, because Romeo is saying exactly what he's going to do. Move not while my praise effects I take. And if you have listened to the video, you know that at this time he is when he says prayer, he's referring to kissing, because he says that he wants lips to do the same things as hands when they pray, so they join together. So if lips join together, they are kissing. So there is no need for stage directions. They're just there to make things a bit easier to understand for actors and modern actors and directors. Okay, so once again, let's have a look at this division. This is very interesting. Once again, as you can see, I pointed out the various parts of this first sonnet that they start sharing, and you can see that in the right column there's the beginning of the second one, which is cut short by Juliet's maid, who calls the girl. So they don't have the chance to finish that. But once again, they start by making a stanza each. The first one by Romeo, the second one by Juliet. The third stanza is shared by them, while the last one, the final couplet, is shared by both characters, meaning that they start to get along. They are meant for each other. They're meant to be together somehow, even though it will not end well. And in this second sonnet that's starting, we see how they start mixing their lines, and also in the final one, Romeo starts the line and Juliet finishes that. So that is one example of how a technical text can be intellectual, deep, beautiful, while still being technically perfect for the purpose it was written. So we have beauty, we have romanticism, we have love, we have rhythm, but we also have a very precise technical document to be enacted and put on stage. And with that, I end this first part of presentations on Shakespeare. So thank you and see you next time.